Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Truth on the Tracks. I'm Brandon Turbeville, your host. Tonight is April 25th, 2016, and we're going to do something a little different than we do normally every week. I've got a guest coming on in the second half, more than the second half, more toward the first third of the show, and it's James Hinton, who is running for Napa County Board of Supervisors in District 2 there in California. We've talked about him on the show for a few weeks, who's running on a platform that has many similar points to the ones that I have been promoting since for the last few years, I guess we should say. So we're going to talk to him, but we're going to cover some news as well. And his interview will be coming up in the latter portion of the show. So, just to remind you, you can catch Truth on the Tracks every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at ucy.tv. You can access the show's personal website at ucy.tv/TT for Truth on the Tracks. And if you're interested in my work, I'm a regular writer for ActivistPost.com, NaturalBlaze.com, arrowofwisdom.org, and BrandonTurbeville.com, my site. So if you want to follow my work specifically, then I would encourage you to go to BrandonTurbeville.com, and that's the website where I repost all of the articles, all of the YouTube videos, all of the interview archives, the show archives, all of the books are available there as well. So all that information is readily available at BrandonTurbeville.com, and I highly encourage you to go to that website in any event on a regular basis to check all the news that's coming out. Now, we have some announcements to make in that regard. I've been talking about how we're trying to get our books up on Amazon and more readily available to people in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, for instance, and the rest of the world. So we're working on that. And we've had some success, and then we're going to start building the store on the website so people can have more access to it. Now, the difference it makes, 36 Reasons Hillary Clinton Should Never Be President. That book is available on my website. You can go there. You can get the book for free as a PDF on my website. So it's available there to begin with. But if you go to Amazon.com, you can find the book in a paperback form and the Kindle form. It's reasonably priced. My first book, Codex Alimentarius: The End of Health Freedom, is now available on Amazon as well in hardback or paperback and Kindle edition. The Road to Damascus: The Anglo-American Assault on Syria is now available on Amazon in paperback form and Kindle edition. And of course, if you buy these books in paperback form, you can get the Kindle edition for free. So that's one of the deals we're offering there. And I want to mention that you can find those. We're going to get the others up as well. So all that's available. At one point, we were using a smaller distribution company, but we're still using that company to maximize distribution. That company's still being used, and the expanded distribution now with Amazon is now taking place. So we're getting the books out to more and more people, and trying to modernize the site and the way that the books are being delivered, and so forth. So lots of improvements coming to the website soon, and I want to thank each and every one of you who have been promoting the show and promoting the work and promoting the book. So that's much appreciated. Please keep doing what you're doing, because we're coming up to a time now where we don't have much time left to really make significant moves toward this world that we want to see, as opposed to the one that we are apparently stuck in right now. Now, before we talk to James, there's a couple of things I want to get off my plate here. We want to talk about the Syrian situation. The peace talks in Syria are over now. Most of us expected that from day one, that the ceasefire agreement and the Geneva peace talks were going to be broken, and that we'd see a return to full-scale fighting on the ground in Syria. Now we had an announcement made by the representation of the so-called Syrian opposition members that were taking part in the Geneva talks, and they made it clear that they were halting all formal peace talks with the Syrian government, and that the so-called moderate terrorists, I guess we should say, moderate terrorists, are resuming combat operations against the Syrian military. So soon after that announcement was made, there were reports that terrorists launched fresh attacks in northwestern Syria, in the province of Latakia and the province of Hama, and that terrorist forces were then claiming that their decision to renew their attacks were a response to quote, an increase in attacks on residential areas and displaced people by the Syrian military. All right, this is their announcement. Says, quote, after the increase of violations by regime forces that included targeting displaced people and continuous bombing of residential neighborhoods, we declare the start of the battle in response. Now, the Syrian military is not attacking residential areas and displaced people. They're attacking terrorist-controlled territory and terrorist organizations. Remember, a number of groups of terrorists were never considered to be part of the Syrian ceasefire to begin with. It's al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, ISIS. They weren't considered part of the ceasefire plan and were thus considered legitimate targets for military operation. Groups considered part of the moderate opposition were protected from the Syrian military assault. Now, the entire classification system for which terrorist organizations were considered legitimate targets and which ones were not considered legitimate targets, that was entirely a farce concocted by the West, and so that Western machinations of arming terrorist brigades would be able to continue while the rifles of the Syrian military were silent. In other words, it was an attempt to create breathing room for the terrorists and let them regroup and so forth for another assault on the Syrian and Russian military. So the West knew full well that the moderate terrorists down there were absolutely no different from the extremist versions of ISIS and Nusra and al-Qaeda. These weren't really moderate groups at all. That's why we call them moderate terrorists. The West was also fully aware of the fact that virtually all of these groups supported and coordinated and fought with at least one of the groups excluded from the ceasefire, and for that reason it functioned as allies of ISIS and not enemies of ISIS. So regardless of all that, the High Negotiations Committee, the HNC, that's the official Syrian opposition negotiating committee working in Geneva, announced that it was suspending formal peace talks. And that statement was corroborated by Staffan de Mistura of the United Nations, the UN Special Envoy to Syria. They did say, though, that they would remain in Geneva and continue with informal discussions between its terrorist constituency and the Syrian government, and that the two bodies would be taking stock of the situation. Now, the collapse of the ceasefire agreement is concerning for a number of reasons, and more so than just the full-scale fighting is now returning to Syria after 5 years of full-scale fighting. It's not just that peace is falling apart, it's that the United States and its imperialist coalition are reportedly discussing not only continuing but increasing their support to terrorists on the ground by providing them with more sophisticated weaponry, even possibly man-pads. And perhaps we'll get into that if we get a chance. The introduction of that type of material to the battlefield, especially if it's man-pads, is going to pose a direct threat to the Russian Air Force as well as to any passenger airliners that are flying across the world, right? You have essentially given terrorist organizations the ability to take out military and civilian aircraft. And that's not going to be a threat that's going to be taken lightly by the Russians either on the battlefield. So with the failure of the ceasefire, we see that the NATO powers are simply moving into another phase of support for proxy forces that are fighting against the Syrian government. Unfortunately, there's a very real possibility that this new phase involves the escalation of Western involvement and the potential for a clash between these two nuclear powers. It seems something that these certain powers want to see regardless. Now, of course, the West, all of its involvement is justified on the basis of spreading democracy and freedom, right? Because the West is such professionals at democracy and freedom. One day we'll try it, and we can tell everybody else in the world what it's like, I suppose. But I have an article. Syrian parliamentary election results disprove Western claims of Alawite dictatorship. And I really encourage people to go pull this article up, because I'm not going to be able to read all of this on air because it's just too repetitive. But if the last nail had not yet been pounded into the West's line of the Syrian government as a sectarian dictatorship, the recent Syrian parliamentary elections have gone great lengths to ensure that very few spikes are needed to finally seal that box shut. Because despite claims by the Western governments and the corporate media outlets that the Syrian government is led by Assad's Alawite clan and that both minorities and majorities are excluded and persecuted, the truth is that Syria and its government are both pluralistic and multifaceted. This has been widely known amongst genuine researchers and those not wedded to NATO imperialist agendas for some time. This knowledge, of course, has been obfuscated and largely hidden by the mass media machine that's been intent on promoting inaccurate views of Syrian society for the purposes of justifying Western intervention under the guise of responsibility to protect and humanitarian bombing and spreading of democracy. Now, if the Syrian government was truly led by a sectarian Alawite, and if it was truly run by Alawites, if the country was run by Alawites in an authoritarian manner, then surely the sectarian Alawites cabinet and Syria's parliament would be made up of Alawites, right? Surely the majority would be excluded from positions of power. You wouldn't see very many Sunnis, there would be less Shiites, Christians, etc., if this is what the Western media is telling us. But this is the presentation that the Western media would have people believe, right? But the recent Syrian parliamentary elections have, if they get reported, crushed those claims. Whenever you take the time to look at the religious affiliations of the members of parliament who won positions in the government during this last round of voting, the results of the Syrian elections do not show a religious minority controlling the government. Rather, it shows a predictable, an accurate sampling of the geographic areas that took part in the voting process. In other words, the elections yielded results that are an accurate representation of Syrian diversity. The majority religion takes the majority of votes in the given districts, and the majority did not always win out either. And you can see that even in some Sunni-dominated areas, Christians and Shiites were able to win seats. And just to point out, the majority of the individuals who won seats in the parliament were Sunni, right? Syria is a Sunni majority country, then Shiite, then Alawite, you got the Druze, you got Christians, Jews, all of these groups. Now, if it was an Alawite dictatorship, you'd see Alawites, right? This would be nothing but Alawites, or a Syrian cabinet would be nothing but Alawites. I've done articles on that before, because that's not the case. We have a list that was provided by Ziad Fadel of Syrian Perspective of all the Syrian politicians who won seats in the recent elections, and along with their names, along with their sections, their sectors, and the governates and that sort of thing, we've got their names, and beside their names we've got a listing of their religion, and particularly a list if they were female also. And you only need to take a brief look at the results to see that if Syrian government is an Alawite dictatorship, it's either the most poorly constructed religious dictatorship in history, or the Western press is just lying. So anybody would be well advised to put their money on the latter, right? That the Western press is lying. They do that so often. But take a look at this list. You see the overwhelming majority of Syrian parliamentary victors are Sunni, right? Damascus, Sunni majority. The Damascus rural sectors are Sunni majority, with some Christians in and out of both of those both of those sectors. The Aleppo sectors, we've got some Sunnis, a couple Christians, even Christian Armenian. Of course, women are peppered in and out of these as well. We've got the Aleppo rural district that shows us Sunnis and Shiites, both winning the elections there. The same thing for the other districts. Deir el-Zor, we have mostly Sunni. Al-Raqqa, that's Sunni and women. We've got Al-Hasaka, we've got a larger portion of women. We've got Sunnis there as well. Hams, we have Christians, Alawites, Sunnis. We've got others as well. Idlib, we've got Sunnis, Alawites. Hama, we've got mostly Sunnis, but one Alawite in the Christians as well. And Sueda, we have Druze, mostly Druze, people winning. Quneitra, it's Sunni. Dera, Sunni and Christian. Latakia, mostly Alawite and Christian. Tartus, we have Christian and Sunni and Alawite and a couple of others. So if you just take a look at that list, you'll see what I'm trying to point out here is if you're looking for sectarianism, you have to look somewhere else. This is not where you're going to find it. Now, before we move on to our interview, I want to draw your attention to a situation here in the alternative media. Some of you who are regular listeners may know John Vibes. He is a writer and researcher in the alternative media. He's been doing quite a bit for quite a long time, who has been recently diagnosed with lymphoma. And John, of course, is pursuing a natural treatment, and the insurance companies want nothing to do with that. And he's trying to avoid being chopped up and poisoned in order to cure that cancer. But this is life-threatening, and he is really fighting for his survival here. So if you are in the business of donating to charitable causes, then he's got a GoFundMe page going. And if you go to GoFundMe.com/John Vibes Cancer, JOHNVIBES Cancer. That's going to take you to his GoFundMe page. He's using this money to get health care, right? This is not something, it's not a project he's starting. This is nothing like that. He's fighting for his survival here. So we highly encourage you, if you're feeling charitable, if you want to give money to a good cause, this is something that you can donate to and feel comfortable about. And we certainly wish John a healthy and happy recovery. So we wish him the best of luck. And again, if you want to donate, it's GoFundMe.com/John Vibes Cancer. Now, we've got this interview coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, you can catch Truth on the Tracks every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back next week. Please enjoy the interview with James Hinton.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Truth on the Tracks. I'm Brandon Turbeville, your host. Tonight, we are doing a special interview with James Hinton, who is a candidate for the Napa County Board of Supervisors, District 2. He's running in that election. His Facebook page is Hinton for Napa. That's Hinton, and his website is jameshinton.org. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's an honor to have you on. You wanted to get into a number. I want to get into a number of the issues that you're talking about because they coalesce with a lot of the things that I write about as well and promote it also. But you mentioned that you wanted to mention the Cannabis Freedom Initiative and the fact that a gentleman by the name of Hakeem Brown is being persecuted by authorities there. I'd rather let you explain that situation. So if you want to go ahead and take it, you have the floor.
Sure. So we're been down at the Napa courthouse since Monday. We've been protesting the trial of Hakeem Brown. Our district attorney, Gary Lieberstein, is seeking a 4-year prison sentence, a felony, for Hakeem for cultivating medical marijuana in the Napa Valley. And Hakeem owns Life Enhancement Services in Vallejo, which is a very well-known medical marijuana dispensary. He's known for growing organic medicine, which many people who are sick, they want to know they're getting organic medicine. They want pesticide-free medicine. So Hakeem has a reputation for being a terrific grower and a medicine provider. Since Napa doesn't have any dispensary, we have to rely on Vallejo's dispensary. So for a lot of people in Napa, you know, we go to LEX. And since Napa is right next door, you know, and we are such a wonderful agricultural destination, you know, he's chosen to grow here. And our district attorney, you know, they go around, they've raided him. So what happened was in 2012, Hakeem was raided on 420. Yesterday was the 4-year anniversary, at 420 by a task force that was made up of multi-counties. So they arrested him. They went in there with guns. They arrested him. They took his medicine. They took his money. And then later on, Vallejo found that their raid was unlawful, that Hakeem was in compliance with California law, and they gave him back his medicine and his $30,000. So come around the next year, 2013, here he is growing up in Berryessa, furnishing medicine again, and they raid him. And here we are, you know, 3 years later, the district attorney's been kicking this can down the road, trying to create a criminal out of him. And, you know, here we are, everybody. I mean, the war on cannabis is coming to an end, and Lieberstein's trying to, you know, punch in a touchdown here before it ends and ruin this man's life. Now, Hakeem Brown, as far as we know, is the only legally licensed African-American medical marijuana dispensary owner in the Bay Area, or in Northern California, as far as we know. So I don't know if this is a race issue with Lieberstein or a coincidence, but our whole community is fed up with it. Many of us have been down there protesting with our signs. We were on the front page of the newspaper on Tuesday, got a lot of talk on Facebook. And we're going to be back here tomorrow, and then we're going to be back again on Monday when we expect the trial to end. So we're all rallying behind Hakeem, and if Lieberstein continues this, I know there's another trial coming up on May 11th with the gentleman we met yesterday who was out there protesting. So I don't know how many victims are out there, but Lieberstein is trying to take them all down. And at the same time, our county coincidentally is trying to get a bond on the ballot for a jail tax measure so they can expand the ever so popular prison industrial complex, right? I'm against this. Our whole community is against this. And I'm taking all bets that the tax does not pass. We're fed up. We're not investing in more cells. So they can keep arresting victimless crimes like Hakeem Brown, you know, who happens to be African American. So we're against it, and that's kind of those two issues. Another issue with the
James,
cannabis. Yes.
Before you continue, I wanted to mention you brought up the trial dates, and you mentioned Monday. I'm at the beginning of the interview. I said it was April 25th. Just to be clear to the listeners, this interview is being recorded on the 21st. So when James said Monday, he means the 25th. So I just wanted to clarify that, but please continue.
Well, thanks for clearing that up. Yeah. So out here in Napa, in May 3rd, we're looking forward to the city of Napa is going to bring forth a medical marijuana dispensary ordinance. So my advocacy got them to not ban it this time around, and they're moving forward with an ordinance in the city. Unfortunately, though, the county banned it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for Napa County Board of Supervisors. I will reverse these draconian bans on outdoor cultivation, commercial cultivation, and dispensaries.
So just to be clear, Napa County, medical marijuana dispensaries are legal in California, but Napa County came up and banned dispensaries in Napa County, right?
Yeah, they've done everything they can to keep one from opening up, either banning them, not extending permits, shutting them down, whatever. They've taken a hardline approach to it. So the city, though, now is finally not going to ban it. You know, they're coming around. They're going to bring forth an ordinance. I can't say it's going to be a good ordinance, but you know, they're starting. We're getting it started. So hopefully, we'll be able to advocate for some quality ordinance that they'll be able to come up with.
Yeah, and the idea, of course, would be that you know, even if it's not the best ordinance that maybe we'd want to see, if it's a step in the direction that's better than what they had, or better than what the county.
Yeah, we can always
so
change it, you know.
Right.
We can always modify it and make it better, but at least we're taking a step in the right direction with the city. But unfortunately, the county, you know, they had a chance to do the same, and they did, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for this office. You know, they want to ban outdoor cultivation so that Gary Lieberstein has something to cling to, you know what I mean? But right now he doesn't. It wasn't even banned when Hakeem was doing it. So this is just a new ban they just passed. And we're fighting it hard. So you can check out on Twitter and online the hashtag #SaveHakeem. Also visit the website injusticeinnapa.com. Injusticeinnapa.com. That tells a lot of Hakeem's story. And my social media, I've had hashtag #SaveHakeem every time. So we've had some great demonstrations all week down there, and we're going to have some big demonstrations this weekend, moving forward to this Monday when the trial will be over. Hopefully it'll be a great story for us to celebrate the end of the trial. But we're in the middle of this election. We're 47 days away, and when this hits the air, it'll be 43 days away from the election on June 7th. So there are 4 people in the race for Napa County Board of Supervisors District 2. There's me, along with the incumbent Chevron consultant, Mark Lewis, and then Mike Thompson, or as they call him in Washington, D.C., Corkhead, who I ran against last year for Congress. He's got a puppet in the race named Ryan Gregory, who's never ran for office or done anything, but I think Thompson is so afraid of me that he had to find a candidate to get in there, and they've given this guy so much money. He had $66,000 back in January when they reported, but I'm sure he's over $100,000 now. He's going to have a hot air balloon with his name on it, going over the Napa Valley, telling us how great he is, but it doesn't matter. The voters know. They've seen enough of me. They're going to pick me. I've been knocking on all the doors. I've been collecting signatures at the grocery stores for the petitions to save our watershed, to legalize medical marijuana. You know, I've been out there fighting the good fight in our community, and I'm really looking forward to these election results coming up. And then there's another Republican in the race, Derek Anderson.
Yeah,
but I like the field. I like the way it's stacked out. It's real competitive with 4 people. Those 3 guys are all pro Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pro Earth. I'm pro worker.
Exactly, and you know, just so people know, they can go to your Facebook page. Again, that's Hinton for Napa, and they can see the videos, and they can see that you're not Johnny come lately, that you really have been out on the streets and in the fight on so many different causes. I mean, the video evidence is there, and I know personally that you've been involved in these fights for quite some time, and it's nothing new. So you are a fixture there in Napa County. Now, you mentioned 2 different issues that I want to get your take on, get your position on. The watershed issue that you've been involved in. Could you explain that to the listeners, and also get your take on your pro-worker policy?
Well, the Watershed Initiative is a local initiative in Napa County. It's called the Water, Forest, and Oak Woodland Protection Initiative of 2016. And what this is going to do, it's going to create a buffer zone at the top of our watershed around the hills. So these streams, as they're evolving, Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. The Class 3 streams are the little ones at the top where they're evolving. These streams have no protection for the trees around them. So the giant oak trees up there are unprotected. Now, when you come further down the stream, when it gets to Class 2 to Class 3, they have protection as a buffer zone. So we're putting an initiative on the ballot. It's going to create a buffer zone for these giant oak trees at the top of the watershed. And the reason why we're passionate about this is former ambassador to Austria during the Clinton administration, Catherine Hall, her and her husband, fracking Wall Street banker Craig Hall, they own Hall Winery in St. Helena. But that's not enough. They're greedy. They want to have an event center at the top of our watershed. So they have this little plan to clear-cut 28,000 trees and put in a winery event center up above Lake Berryessa's Circle Oak. And this is going to compromise our Milliken watershed, which is where the city of Napa gets its cleanest drinking water. The reason it's clean is because it's undeveloped. If we allow these bankers like the Halls to clear-cut all these trees at the top of our watershed and put in vineyards with glyphosate, okay, what's going to happen is without those trees there and the roots, erosion is going to be a problem. So every time it rains, that dirt is going to run into our watershed, into our creek, into our river, into our stream, and that's our drinking water. And along with it's coming the glyphosate. Glyphosate is a carcinogen. So I think you know with glyphosate, Roundup, right?
Yeah.
So this is a major problem. So I'm out there along with Mike Hackett, local guy, local activist. He's one of the authors of the initiative. Another author is Chris Malin. She's running for Napa County Board of Supervisors District 4. She's a Green Party candidate. Like myself, that's out there on the ballot. She's one of the authors. And we've been out there pounding the pavement, collecting signatures for this. Of course, the vintners don't like it, right? But the voters do, and that's what's most important. So we're hoping that we can get enough signatures by May 12th to get this on the ballot for November and put it to the people, let them vote on it. But this will put in place protections to keep our watershed clean, you know. So we're really excited about this.
Now you bring up glyphosate, and that rings bells to me with big agri and particularly companies like Monsanto and those GMOs. And you have just your position, you're pro-labeling for GMOs even at the county and state level, but you've recently been endorsed by a pro-labeling group. Maybe you could give the name of that group, but then why don't you let the listeners know your policy on GMOs?
Napa County Labeled GMOs has endorsed my campaign, and they're a great group of activists that are always at the farmers market and certain city council and board of supervisors meeting advocating for state and federal labeling of our GMOs and our food. And they've endorsed my campaign because they've seen me out there, protesting H.R. 1599. The Monsanto Protection Act, the Dark Act it is. And they've seen me out on the street on all those issues, and they've supported my campaign. I'm really happy about that. They're a great group of supporters to have. So, we have a chance from the Board of Supervisors to offer state and federal leadership. We hire lobbyists, okay? We have a legislation subcommittee to tell what we want to see from our state and federal. So I will make this a priority that we start labeling our food. Because recently, it's not a big problem for me because I'm a vegan, but for a lot of meat eaters, I used to eat meat, and I used to love a steak. But Court Ked, Congressman Thompson, he sponsored a bill last year, H.R. 2393, that removes the country of origin of labeling on our meat, the COOL Act. So we were used to know what country our meat came from. If we use USA, it might say Montana, California, or somewhere. but it would at least say Canada, Mexico, China, Australia, lamb chops, you name it. It was labeled. Well, you knew what country our meat was coming from, and that's important because some people have regulations and some countries don't. So, if you're eating meat from a country with no regulations that's known to pollute a lot, you may not be eating the most healthiest meat. And for some people, that was a big concern. So Thompson sponsored a bill to repeal this, and he said he saved our district a lot of money because Canada was threatening to put tariffs on our wine if he didn't do that. So we're all upset about this, and I've been fighting that, because we want to know. There was a big scandal out here in Petaluma a couple of years ago because Thompson cut down a bunch of watchdogs at the meat packing place, the federal meat packing location here in Petaluma after the Doritos crisis. They cut down the staff, and they were passing through cows with eye cancer. They would put 50 cows that were healthy, slaughter them, get them inspected, leave the heads, come in, slaughter a new 50, get rid of the 50 eye cancer eye cancer heads, and leave the old heads in there, have them inspected again. They got away with it for a little while, and then they got caught, had a big recall on all the meat because of the cancer. And Trump says, "Oh, you don't need to know what country your meat's coming from because we inspect it." Oh yeah, thanks, Mike. You do a great job at that, huh? So we're just upset, and we need to have our county step it up and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Thompson, we're not okay with this," and I plan on doing that.
Yeah, I think our connection is starting to get a little shoddy there. But before we end the interview, I want to mention also you're one of your opponents, Luce, I believe, has also stood in the way of GMO labeling initiatives, has he not? I believe he.
Well, yeah, he's part of this subcommittee that won't listen to the people's will on it. We're in their 15-0 in support, based on the strength of the label of GMO. So on a Monday morning, they have a legislation subcommittee back in September. How many people do you think are going to show up and say, we should write a letter labeling GMOs? Well, 15 of us showed up, and we unanimously supported this effort. But Mark Luce denied our will and said, let's get rid of the words and state and submit it. Just, we want federal labeling of GMOs. So they want to give some lobbyists some money to do this, when nobody else of the other congressmen are supporting this bill or anything. It's just we're so much closer to getting it done on the states, and we should have just supported both. You know what I mean? It's so such an important issue. We should support both. But this guy Luce, he doesn't hear it.
Yeah, it seemed fairly clear that he had that removed because he realized that at the federal level it had a lot less chance of getting passed than it did at the state level, so he had those words removed.
Yeah, well, I would encourage all of your listeners to check out our little video from the debate. It's about a minute and a half on this question when the question comes up about labeling GMOs. And Mark Luce is the gentleman to my left. You can see our name tags right in front of us, and boy, his facial expressions tell the whole story, and the crowd's applause, I think, would verify that they support me. I'm not alone on this issue of labeling GMOs. But, yeah, you can check it out, and it's a great video.
Yeah, and I actually did an article on that video. People can see the...
Yeah, and I believe you can see the article right there. I think the video's attached to the article.
Yeah,
so
it is. It's called
Check it out on your...
California County Board candidate slams GMOs and opponents in debate, and that's my article. It's up at BrandonTurbeville.com and NaturalBlaze.com, and of course, if you go and like the Facebook page Hinton for Napa, you'll find it there. In fact, you can go to my website and just type in James Hinton, and you'll find a lot of information, the articles that I've done in the past, because it's pretty unusual, to be honest, for issues like GMOs to be brought up in a countywide Board of Supervisors or County Council debate, right? And it's much more rare to see somebody standing up for labeling GMOs as vociferously as you have done, and that's what prompted me to do the article about it for one thing, and I encourage people to take a look, because this is a lot different than the other races that are taking place. I just wanted to get your comments on.
Well, that's a good point you make. The other night I'm walking downtown after the one of the rallies for Hakeem, and this guy stops me. He says, he said, "What's up, James?" And I said, "Hey," to him. He was on the editorial board, and I said, "Thanks for that wonderful article with the, I know I didn't get your pick, but you said a lot of nice things about me, and I appreciate it." He says, "Man, you blew us away. You were the last one of the candidates. The other three guys all came in and they're telling us, oh, I think we should regulate the tasting rooms like this, and I think we should regulate the tasting rooms like this." And then you come in and say, "Hey, we got these high cancer rates, and it's because we're feeding our kids a bunch of junk food at school, and we got all these carcinogens in our environment." And we're going, so they were really impressed. They see somebody up there talking about something new. And, of course, it's a pretty entrenched system to get through Mike Thompson's puppet and a guy like Mark Lewis who's been there 20 years to get an endorsement from the newspaper like that. But, the fact, if you look at their endorsement, what they wrote about me in 2014 versus what they wrote about me in 2016, I say they've come around a little bit, and they're changing. But I really am looking forward to these election results on June 7th. I'm planning on having a victory.
Yeah,
big win, first place.
I think they've been forced to recognize that you're having an effect there, because I agree. I saw what they wrote on the first race against Mike Thompson. I see what they're writing now, and they're having to admit that you're a viable candidate here, and they're having to give you
improved and viable.
Yes,
much improved and very, very viable.
Yeah. So and the papers are having to reflect that. So good job in that direction.
And that's
also.
the other thing. It's I might be outmatched in fundraising, $100,000+ to $3,400, but this is only 1/3 of Napa, the northwest side of Napa. Compared to my congressional district, this is like a closet inside of the house. Okay, I don't need $100,000 to knock on all these doors. I don't need $100,000 to print my black and white flyers in my yard sign. My yard signs aren't black and white, they're purple. But what I'm saying is I got enough of a budget for a campaign, and my platform resonates so well with the voters. Their big money doesn't scare me. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the voter per dollar turnout on this election, as well as to see who gets the most votes, because I think it's going to be me.
Well, I wanted to just talk about two more issues before we go here, and just to point out that you spoke out about a bill that would have essentially, and I think that bill passed, but the bill would have forced vaccinations for children who are going to school, and you spoke out against this bill, and you agitated for greater freedoms and greater choice for parents at a time when this vaccine debate was raging. So if you were looking for political points, this was not a speech that you gave to gain political points, is what I'm saying. This was given at a time where it was very controversial, and you were definitely sticking your neck out in that regard to do that. But maybe you want to explain just what you were speaking out against when you spoke against this law. And
recently the California oligarchy, the Assembly and senators, Senator Pan from Sacramento, from Big Pharma, former pediatrician, he wrote this bill, SB 277, that's going to kick kids out of school if they don't have all their vaccines. And it's a very, very hefty vaccine schedule. So a lot of parents don't want to give their children vaccines. They've seen vaccine injuries, and they don't want their children to have vaccines. They don't trust them. And they're being kicked out of school because they're still going to be allowed to go to church, they can still go to the playground, they can still go to school, but they're going to be deprived of an education because of the bill. So we used to have personal belief exemptions, doctor exemptions, such forth, that you could get signed, and that would allow your child to stay in school. So I've been down on the local level. First of all, I got involved with the referendum. We were in Napa. We were getting as many signatures in Napa every week as we could, get a referendum on the ballot to stop this bill. And this referendum was headed up by former assembly member, he's a Tea Partier, Tim Donnelly, who launched a run for governor last year. And he lost the primary, came up third. It went Brown, and Zombie Banker, Neil Kashkari edged him out for second place and got into the runoff with Jerry Brown. So Donnelly gave up his assembly and whatever. So he got behind this referendum. And unfortunately, when they had to be turned in, they went missing in the middle of the night, 100,000 of our signatures. And we needed like 300,000 or something in California. So we had 100,000 go missing in the middle of the night, including over 20,000 from some county. And I still haven't heard anything from Mr. Donnelly. So Tim Donnelly, if you're out there, how about telling us what happened? Who sabotaged the referendum? Okay? A lot of us out here in California, we want to know. We worked hard on that referendum. We want to know what happened to our signatures. But in the meantime, we're fighting forward. We're moving to the school districts. We're going down to ground zero. We're asking them to support a resolution to protect personal belief exemption. And you can see some of that footage. I think you wrote an article about that too, Brendan. If you want to learn more, you can check that out. But we're not giving up the fight on vaccines. We're willing to do whatever we can to protect our rights. And I want to encourage parents, if you have to make a decision, kick your kids out of school. Do not give them vaccines if you do not trust them. Homeschool them or whatever, because our education in California ain't what it used to be. It's severely declined since the 50s and 60s, and it is great to have an education system, but right now it's most important to protect our kids from big pharma, I think, and I would encourage you to. If you're afraid of vaccines, then don't do it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that, and I just want to mention one other issue before we go. I keep saying that, but one other issue before we go. The minimum wage, you've advocated for raising the minimum wage, correct?
Absolutely. In California, we have the popular Fight for 15, and I support it. Seattle did it. San Francisco did it. They are progressive West Coast cities with thriving economies. Napa has a thriving economy. Millions and millions of dollars trickle in every month into the Napa Valley for the wine industry and tourism. Tons of jobs in this industry, from working on the bottling lines, working in the vineyards, working in the cellar, jobs working in the hotels, jobs working in all these restaurants. It's true. If you're waiting tables or bartending in downtown Napa, you're making a lot of money. You may be making $300 a night in tips alone, maybe more in some of these restaurants, maybe less, maybe only 100, 150. But if you're not in the bartending or waiting, if you're behind the closed doors in the back in the kitchen, you're only making $12 an hour at best, unless you're the chef. So that's unfortunate, and that doesn't go very far in Napa, okay? If you want to rent a 3-bedroom home in Napa, a low-end 3-bedroom home for a family in Napa is going to cost you about $2,500 a month in rent. So $12 an hour out here is nothing to get by on in Napa. So not that $15 an hour is going to do it, but it's a start, and it's going to help raise wages for everybody else that's not making minimum wage. So I support this, and if I'm elected, I'm going to put forth an initiative to get it done by 2019.
So just to roll this all up, your platform encompasses labeling GMOs, opposing forcible vaccination and coercive vaccination, raising the minimum wage $15 an hour, cannabis freedom, the end of the prison industrial complex. Is there anything else you want to bring up? And I can make sure you also.
That's the clean water. I'm all for clean water, and we got to take on. We got to have some Wall Street reform. We got to have some financial reform. And what I'm going to do is Napa has a lot of infrastructure that was damaged during the earthquake back in 2014 when I was running for Congress. We had a massive earthquake that rattled the downtown. It was all over the news. Buildings were crumbling. Our jail crumbled. We've had tons of infrastructure, courthouse, tons of infrastructure crumbled, our post office. And I am going to be fighting for a new economic vehicle that is going to be able to extend the same interest rates for our public infrastructure that the Wall Street zombie banks are getting to gamble on our mortgages. So I am for economic rights, and I am going to do, the first day I'm elected, I'm going to ask that we write a letter to the new president of 2016, along with Senator Boxer, the new senator, and probably Corkhead will win again, unfortunately. And we're going to ask them to nationalize the Federal Reserve and to replace it with the National Bank. So that will be my first order of business, because we need to do something about that. But I probably won't get that far, but I'm going to try it. But then we'll get on to the other issues, minimum wage and clean water.
Well, again, it's a step, and it can gain traction. It can set a precedent. It could raise awareness amongst other people who are in elected positions across the country that there is another way to fund their projects. Besides
one project that I haven't talked about that I'm for is Copycat. Santa Cruz County recently passed a ban on banks, saying that these 5 banks, which included Citibank, J.P. Morgan, then a couple others, they said, listen, you 5 pled guilty to currency manipulation in a felony. Therefore, you are no longer allowed to get any contracts with our county for 5 years. And they banned them. They embarrassed them. And I plan on trying to do the same ban here in our county. Those 5 banks, they can be banned here for 5 years as well.
Speaking of copycatting, you advocated for a school lunch program too, right? That was cleaner food. Why don't you tell us about that? I forgot to mention it earlier.
Well, Marin Sausalito, they have a school district over there that furnishes local organic food every day to their kids. And Napa serves processed food from Sodexo every day, which is basically on most days it's a Tony's pizza that they heated up in a bag and served our students. It's horrible that we live in this wonderful garden, and we have unlimited agricultural opportunities here in the Napa Valley. Why we're not teaching our kids how to cultivate the land for food and nourish ourselves properly, I don't get it. We are fed up, though, as a community, and we're fighting to remove Sodexo, and we're gaining traction. It's coming along. It's not over, but it is coming along. We had a meeting the other day that went pretty well on it. They've admitted, it's a problem, but they haven't admitted to let's kick Sodexo out yet. So, but it's starting. We're getting closer to it. We're fighting for it. And so I'm saying we should just replace Sodexo with a successful model like another school district like Marin Sausalito.
Yeah, these are awesome points, James, and we're coming to the end of our time. But before we do, just let everybody know how they can donate to your campaign and how they can assist your campaign. If somebody, first of all, if somebody's in Napa County, what can they do to help you become the next District 2 Board of Supervisors, or the next District 2 Supervisor? And if they're not in Napa County, if they're across the country, what can they do to help you?
If you're in Napa County, you can host a yard sign. You can write a letter to the editor. You can walk precincts, knock on doors. You can make telephone calls. You could make a financial contribution, although I haven't been asking people for financial contributions. People give them to me, but I haven't really been asking for them, I need more help. Nationally, again, if you like my platform and you've got a couple extra bucks and you wanted to support me, then you could write me a check to James Hinton or to my campaign committee, which is called Committee to Elect Hinton for Supervisor 2016. You can mail that to 3574 Hunters Circle, Napa, California, 94558. You could possibly phone bank from your home. You could possibly write a letter to the editor of the Napa Register. Say, hey, I just heard this terrific guy on Truth on the Tracks running for Board of Supervisors in Napa County. And I think you should vote for him based on whatever part of the platform you agree with. And if you're listening to the show, you probably like a lot of the same of the platform that me and Brandon support. So, you could write a letter to the Napa Register, go to the NapaValleyRegister.com website, click on Letters to the Editor. Campaign letters can be up to 500 words right now. And the election ends June 7th, so if you get them in the next month, they should print in time, and it helps me because it gets my name in the newspaper. Gets a conversation started about my platform. Gets a conversation started about the anti-GMOs or vaccines, even though vaccines really isn't a Board of Supervisor issue. But what the hell? It's always good to talk about, Having a conversation is the key to solving any problem. So I encourage you to write letters. You could phone bank. Please like my Facebook page, Hinton for Napa. And follow me on Twitter at Hinton2016 or Instagram at Hinton2016. And, keep supporting Brandon Turbeville. This is a great, great guy delivering news that all of us really appreciate. Nobody else is delivering the news and working hard like Brandon. So, he's a treasure, too. You guys can support me just by supporting him. It means the world to me that he's out there sharing so much information with everyone. So, I encourage you just to support Brandon as well.
Well, James, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. Best of luck. When is the election?
June 7th, Tuesday.
Best of luck on June 7th, and we'll be watching your campaign, and, we hope you're the next District 2 supervisor in Napa County.
Well, I appreciate your support, Brandon, and I always look forward to reading all your articles. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, James. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me on.
Ozzy Skateboard, and listen on UCY.tv.